And so similarly, officers have their own equipment, like you said, the radar gun, and in this case, it was the actual breathalyzer machine. So they were blowing into it, and the reading came out, and it was internally invalid or inconsistent. And so they came out with these readings that were just so far apart that this officer should not have relied on them in authoring these.
You're like Arizona's best criminal defense guy.
Is there going to be a disclaimer in the bottom of this one?
Yeah, disclaimer.
Right.
But it's been fun assisting you, and talking about these things and playing manager and paralegal and trying to keep up with your pace. It's exhausting because you have a pretty fast pace.
Yeah, I mean, some cases take a little bit of work and a little bit of time and effort, but really what we try to do is just find out what's most important to the client. And for some of them, that is just blister through this. They want to get done. They want to just, what's the next step? How can they move forward? Some of them, there's some, I think you always like to say there's some hair on it. Yeah. And that's part of it too, is, we're not afraid to slow down and look at it and see what we can do to try to help as we go and dig in deeper to things. Yeah.
Yeah, by the pace, you just don't like to mess around. I wasn't trying to put it as sloppy. You have a very unique ability to stay right on the straight and narrow and lockjaw in on something, finish it, and then do it again, and then do it again, and do it again. And those of us around you have got to kind of keep up.
Yeah, we try to be methodical about it, and I think that is some value that we can add to it, to the process, is making sure that we approach things similarly, and then sometimes the pace will be dictated by outside factors. But yeah, the other thing too is we try to be fast movers. We try to make sure what are the most urgent needs, what's kind of the legal triage do we need to do before we can dig into the more surgical aspects and stuff like that.
Bob drew a case that he was assisting you on recently, and he comes busting in telling me about this amazing outcome and great job you did getting a criminal charge dismissed for one of the clients here. And we both know Bob is not one to compliment regularly.
Yeah.
And he usually wants a fair amount of, hey, look what I did. Because and to be fair to Bob, he does do quite a lot. And he's awesome. He assists about as good as you're ever going to find. But man, he was really pouring it on thick with this particular case, and it made me kind of look into it and go, I want to talk to BG about this and see where it all went down. So when we have clients that come in here and they need legal assistance and they need an attorney, and most of these folks want something dismissed, want a charge dismissed. I mean, that's what everybody's dream will be. Now, in our experience, and I'm sure you can kind of attest to this, in our experience, there's a lot of clients that aren't expecting to wiggle out of a criminal charge.
Yep.
They're trying to get to be treated fairly. Is probably the most prevalent type of client that you see, I would assume. Yeah,
we have a lot that I think know that they made mistakes and want to take responsibility, but not ruin their life for it. And Arizona can be pretty tough when it comes to some of the laws. Some of them are written to where even, we try to tell our clients, even if the judge loves you and wants to help you, their hands are tied.
Right.
And so a lot of it is trying to navigate that, trying to find different case law, different statutes that we can use to kind of mitigate that damage and help them, like you said, be treated fairly if they're going to fairly take responsibility for it.
Yeah. So how'd you get that case dismissed? What'd you do? Because Bob does not throw around those compliments, as you know. Yeah. And, man, he was really pouring it on, so I had to start talking to you about it.
Okay. Well, it must have been a good day. He had a good breakfast or something, but timing just worked out. So this one was pretty tricky, actually. This was one of those where there was just a lot of collateral issues that we were trying to deal with. This client of ours was charged with a vehicle crime, and this client also drives commercial trucks. And so that's the hard part, is even though this offense itself was not committed or alleged to be committed in any kind of commercial vehicle, it wasn't on the job or anything like that, just because there's naturally MVD consequences, it all starts to spill over. And so this is more than just, my driver's license and it's an inconvenience. This is their livelihood. This is everything.
Right.
That
This
they've
is how
got.
they feed their family and
Correct.
themselves.
Yep.
And they do it with that CDL driver's license, and a DUI does make that, does compromise that.
Absolutely.
For a long period of time.
A long period of time, and the standards are heightened. They're more exacting for the CDL. And so, for example, if somebody got a run-of-the-mill DUI, just a first-time misdemeanor, and their blood alcohol concentration's over 0.08, that's going to be tough to fight against or work against. But with the CDLs, they have, I think it's a 0.04. Even if you're in just a civilian vehicle. And so there was just a lot that was going on. The other difficult thing is this client also lives out of state, so there had to be a lot of communication. That's where the team aspect came into it, where I was able to focus on the case itself while the rest of the team took over and was just communicating and helping inch things along.
You had Ann, Bob, Noah, myself talking to the client,
Yep.
making sure they're the team swarmed around the client. Keep them apprised.
Yeah, just, they're like the hospital staff, just making sure the vitals are okay and that there's no drop in temperature or anything like that while I was trying to go in and do some work. And again, because this is a vehicle crime, there's also a motor vehicle division. They have their own sets of hearings. I don't think a lot of people know that with DUIs and vehicle crimes, that motor vehicle will come in and then they've got their own sets of rules and hearings and judges and all of that stuff. So
was this a victory there as well?
Yeah, actually, we were very fortunate. This client, I think, a lot of things broke right for this person, but also I think a lot of it was just like I mentioned those methods. We were able to get the best outcome with that. So with that, we're trying to keep all the plates spinning. The motor vehicle division, we called for a hearing, and the officer didn't show, which, okay, that's great. Well, the judge continued it, and I was like, all right, well, that if I had done the same thing, you would have gone ahead and taken adverse action against the client. So we had to put up with that one. And so then, we had another one that was rescheduled. It was for a Friday afternoon. And I was like, this officer's been giving me a tough time on the criminal aspect. I've been trying to get this interview set up with him for months. And he's been dogging me. And you know what? We'll see if he does it again. And luckily we had the hearing and the outcome was good for the client, but that's just the motor vehicle division. There's still the criminal case that we're also dealing with, and it's the same officer who now knows that we're going to keep pushing the case and he's got to do his job. And we set up an interview request, but then the prosecutor...
Wait. Officers don't like to do their job sometimes?
I don't want to speak ill of these people that try to protect us and help us, but there are times when I think they prioritize things over some of these types of administrative proceedings and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, again, sometimes there are legitimate things that they're responding to, emergency issues and everything like that, but then sometimes, they just don't want to. They just don't want to do all of the aspects of their job. They don't want to do all the paperwork or anything like that. And this actually came to play in the criminal case as well. I had noticed in going through it, like I said, we try to be methodical. There's lots of these kind of checkpoints as we go through about the officer stop, the interaction, the testing methods used, all that kind of stuff. And for the most part, it's pretty routine, pretty much the same.
So you're going through making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and this officer had a few holes or gaps. And so you had already bested him in the MVD, which to me is kind of interesting because I'm just going to rewind that little piece just for a minute. Those are hard to win.
Yeah.
It's a freaking kangaroo court. It's like Judge Judy meets Jerry Springer.
It's tough, yeah, because they got their own sets of rules.
Right.
I mean, literally,
It
their own set of rules.
It literally is a kangaroo court. I expect to have some sort of baseball player in there, and they're holding court with all the rest of the baseball players. It is a kangaroo court. It's a zoo.
Well, and to that, another thing too is there's no prosecutor in these executive hearings for the motor vehicle division. The judge is the prosecutor. Right. So you have to not only, because typically in a criminal case, the judge is the referee. They're the umpire calling balls and strikes, making sure everybody's playing fair, all that kind of stuff. Here, they are both. They are calling their own balls and strikes. They're the pitcher and saying, no, that's okay, I'll let it slide. And I've had that happen before. It's infuriating because objection to your own ruling. I mean, how do you you're wrong, and here's why. That's so tough. And so, yeah, we were able to have success there. And so this officer, I think, was painfully aware of that. So we set it up for an interview, but then in the criminal case, but the prosecutor's not there. And I knew when I was reviewing that there was an equipment issue or at least potential issue. And this is what needs to be explored, right? Because the officers, they rely on equipment. They rely on scientific readings and outputs that take some training and experience, but also other people to make sure the equipment's running properly, calibrated, all this other kind of stuff. Otherwise, we could have people that are wrongfully arrested, wrongfully accused of things just because the equipment malfunctions.
Right. So to make this clear for the reader and the viewer, I don't know if anybody's going to read this. That'd be cool.
There's, I think, captions you can get if you
that'd be
want
awesome.
to. That probably put you
We'll
to
have
sleep.
to look into that.
Yeah.
So for the listener and or reader with the captions, let's say that I'm driving down the road and there's, officer, well-meaning officer on his motorcycle. I just painted the picture.
Yeah. I know the
And
kind.
I'm going 35 miles an hour. Scout's honor. 35 miles an hour, and out comes 87 miles an hour on his little radar there. Well, he's probably gonna poke his little button. They don't kick him anymore. They just and they go after us with their motorcycles there, and they put their little lights on, and they pull us over for an 87 mile an hour citation, right? Which is criminal, probably. Anyway, it's because that equipment didn't work. Because I was going 35, and I'm like, how in the Sam could I be? I mean, first off, I'd have known I was going 87.
Yeah.
Secondly, your radar's broke. So that's what you're referring to is they rely on their equipment.
Yes.
And ultimately, who's in charge of that equipment?
Exactly. And so, I mean, when we're driving, it's our responsibility to make sure our vehicle's functioning properly, right? That the tires are lined up, that the speedometer works correctly, tail lights, all the stuff that are, hopefully means of keeping us safe. And so similarly, officers have their own equipment, like you said, the radar gun, and in this case, it was the actual breathalyzer machine. So they were blowing into it, and the reading came out, and it was internally invalid or inconsistent. And so they came out with these readings that were just so far apart that this officer should not have relied on them in authoring these tickets. Another method that they can do is also a blood draw, but this officer just didn't. And so to me, that just, it's the belt and suspenders. And a lot of agencies do that as a matter of practice, but this one didn't. And so then I started looking back into the report, and I was like, that's got to be an oversight. So I looked, and I checked with Bob, and that's part of where he can really shine is he's just got decades of experience.
Sure.
And so I was like, Bob, what am I missing? He's like, nothing. The officer missed it. So you need to get the officer, on record at talking about this before this ever gets to trial, because that's where this was ultimately headed, and we were worried about that. But so we get the officer on the line, and the prosecutor's not available. And that's a problem because the prosecutor, it's their case at that point. He's the one that's got to put the officer on the stand and ask him the questions, and he's got to convince the jury that this officer is accurate. Well, this prosecutor's the one that gave me that report. They never saw this. Clearly, in the volume that they get, they aren't able to pour over the details like we are,
right,
or like we're getting paid to do. Because I'll spend time, if my kids time out on a basketball court game, and I'll look at an email or work on some stuff or look things up and stuff like that on weekends.
I know we're all trying to keep up with you.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of it too, is it allows things to kind of marinate and think about it and give me some perspective. And then I'll come back to Bob and I'm like, they're so far off. How is that not immediately? It's in all caps. It's bold. Right. How is he missing it? And he's like, well, you're on page 29 of a 34-page report. He read the first 4 pages. That's it.
Right.
And he relies on the officer. You need the prosecutor to hear this. So I was like, all right. So that was the game plan, and that's what we did, is we had the officer interview, and then we had the prosecutor there for it. And some agencies don't do that. And so a lot of the hard work and the methods, really, it's more art than science, because you have to know which prosecutor you're dealing with, which court, which judge you're in front of, all these types of things, and the stuff I'd learned about this officer with his background and everything like that. So finally the prosecutor hears it, and nothing. They just hang up, have a good day. And I'm like, there's no way he heard that and didn't immediately have these red flags come up. Right. So I didn't take any action on it because he had this client had a hearing the next week, which was a week or two ago. And I just showed up, and before I could even sit down, he's like, okay, we're going to have to dismiss the criminal cases. And it was one of those where I tried to play it cool, but I was like, I knew it. Right. I knew it. I knew that you knew it, but you didn't say anything. And
you dirty scoundrel.
Right?
You made me wait the 2
How long
weeks?
were you going to let me tangle? If I hadn't asked, you wouldn't have told me, but he told me. So it was really good, and it was one of those kind of far out courts as well. So it was just a really good drive back, coming back, and then I normally will get back to the office and I'll write my report or my notes on the hearing, and then I'll send the client something. But I couldn't wait. I just told her right away, and she was just really thrilled, and it will mean a lot to her professionally, personally, and she was patient with us. That was the hard part too, is we had to ask that of her, that trust, because this has been going on for a while, and this officer was kind of protracting all of this stuff, and we just trust us. We're going about it, and this is the best we can do, and so it was really, really good and really, really satisfying to help her out, because ultimately, that equipment was faulty, or at least it wasn't calibrated properly, and
Right.
that's the officer's. He has to do that. So I couldn't tell you. I mean, Scout's honor that whether or not she was impaired, what those readings were, because the equipment was faulty. I mean, she got pulled over for taking a turn too fast. I mean,
It wasn't a obvious type
it
of,
wasn't a
right.
wreck. It wasn't, her driving around, swerving all over the road and becoming an endangerment to other. It just starts very innocuous, and most interactions are that it's you're going too fast,
Right.
or you didn't put your blinker on, or something like that. And this is now escalated to where this has jeopardized her professionally. It's obviously personally embarrassing. She's got to invest a lot of time and resources and trust in us to do that. So yeah, Bob shared my enthusiasm because he was a big part of that process, and just helping me make sure I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't overlooking it, or just like pish posh, this is, she's still going to be hosed for X, Y, and Z reason or whatever. And so he was able to help me remain focused and kind of put the blinders on the racehorse, and that's the finish line, and Bob helped there. So it was really good. We're really happy with that for this client.
Yeah, the staff is pretty awesome. I love being one of the staff members. It's pretty cool. I love the fact that you spill off onto the other attorneys as well as just stay with it, lockjaw. And even if it's got to marinate, you said something just a second ago that I dig. You got to marinate. You got to kind of think, wait a minute, how am I seeing this right? Am I, letting, and so I love the result. They happen. They do. It's usually, I'd love to say sex appeal, which you definitely, obviously, everybody's got eyeballs for themselves. However, that hard work and that time that it would just roll in your mind over and over and over again, and then verifying with your staff that also gives a crap, and they're like, in the trenches there too.
Yep.
And then going, all right, here we go, and then step by step by step. I just wanted to pod about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one thing I learned early on from a good attorney I was working under, and it was hard because it was, it was civil. I had to do billable hours, and so like here's the art to it and how you do it. But he's like, you just need to think about it. You need to just think about a case. You can't become so methodical. You can't become so rigid in how you approach every case, or else you'll overlook stuff like that. And so that's part of the process. And that's unfortunately one of the things, like we'll get a lot of people with public defenders, and they're like, yeah, he said this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I get it. I get it. They're good guys or good gals. They don't have time. They have so much on their plate. They're getting 6 new cases a day, every single day. They don't have time to think. They have to be methodical about it and just a process and moving it forward on the conveyor belt. And that's unfortunate that some people that could otherwise have a better result, I think, are caught in that circumstance. And so that's why I think it's good for us. We try to do, as much as we can to help people and to be understanding with their personal circumstances. But again, it also gives us time to just think about it and work on it. And everybody has, I think, something to offer. Like Bob obviously was big on this in the technical aspects, but there's experts that we work with. We have Ann that I think is just the best as far as bedside manner and just helping them not freak out, because it's really easy to do that.
That's really important too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's something too that I know I need to get better at, because I am very matter of fact. I am very much stuck in the courtroom, and when I come right out, I'm still thinking like a lawyer,
Right.
and less like a person. That's where we talk with Ann,
Right.
and she, let me explain it to you in plain English. Am I saying this right? And Ann's like, well, they don't know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but nobody uses that word in their everyday,
Right.
Conversation. And
Right.
so it's good to have Ann that helps regulate things.
I like that that I'm not the only one she chews out.
Oh yeah, she'll let me know. Yeah, for
like
sure.
that.
So, but
I feel less
also
alone right now.
she's also a really good buffer in between too. So she'll take a lot of the clients' frustrations and and I'm like, well, I just told them that. And she's like, yeah, but you know what? You're not listening. This is what they're actually worried about. And if you just give them a call, and I'm like, oh man, set it up. And Ann helps me, think like a person, think normally again. And so I think everybody kind of needs that whole team environment, because there's just stuff that I would just, like you said, I get focused on things and I want to pull at that thread, and I could miss something else. And so that's where the ands and the bobs come in. And I mean, even Noah, he's got aspirations to be an attorney, and so he just thinks a totally different way than most people here, but he's also the face, he's the greeter, and so he gets to do kind of the interface of both. And so it's such a good mix and blend of talents and personalities here that I do think that we really truly help people, as opposed to just addressing their legal issues. We try to really help people.
Yeah. Put them on the right spot, put them on the right path, give them a better future, give them better tomorrows, and make sure we get them through today.
Exactly.
I think it's awesome. Ending note, I'm going to ask you this. I did not intend to. I hear this I'm listening to a podcast last night before, and there was the longest commercial because I couldn't get to my phone because I was riding my bike, and I could get to my phone, but it's just not a good idea.
Sure.
To check your, whatever. Okay, so podcast has a what are those? An ad, a spot. Kind of like this was brought to you by the Arizona firm, right? Only this was an AI lawyer spot, and it went on forever and ever and ever and ever. And so I just kind of started listening to it. And as you were just talking just a second ago, breaking down how this case maneuvered, it didn't sound like this case was worked any differently than any other case we work here. But it sounds to me like the question that I want to pose you is, could AI?
No, and like I said, there is a method to it, and AI can learn that. AI can learn the laws and the statutes, and it can regurgitate the answer. But a lot of it is playing the hand that you're dealt, and that's how do you teach AI that the prosecutors in courtroom 303 are entirely different than the prosecutors in 304, or the judge in 305 used to be a defense attorney, which sounds great, but in practice they're almost always the worst. And so that's just tough. The other thing too is whether you're in Mesa or Gilbert, the laws are the same, but the entire court is different. How you handle the prosecutors is different. I mean, same thing like, Bob was talking about, you need this prosecutor to hear it. This prosecutor is a good attorney, knowledgeable, but like I said, there's just such a volume over there right now, and I'm working with him on another case as well. So I could have really rubbed his face in it. I could have been like, this could have been done 6 months ago and all this other stuff, but I've got to maintain a good working relationship with him. And you know what? He did the right thing. And now we've got another case where there might be another opportunity to do the right thing. And he's going to give us that professional credibility. AI can't replicate that. AI is not going to have a familiar face in the courtroom that judges are happy to see. Oh, Mr. Garner, good to see you here today. How are things? And, it sounds like just pleasantries, but that's a professional credibility that we have.
Yeah, they don't do that with every lawyer that walks through that door.
That's correct. Some of them, they are immediately cringe because they know that this is going to be just so needlessly difficult. And so that's what I think, again, this team here, this firm here, and the presence in the legal community is one that's always been appreciated, and one that, when it's time to fight, we'll fight. But for the most part, we're here just to make everybody's lives easier. And again, I think that in a lot of ways does translate to our clients and getting better results, because when prosecutors know if we're going to dig our heels in, if I'm going to set this interview and I want to make sure you're here, there's something that they need to hear.
Yeah.
Because that's not every day. It's not every case. We do have clients, like you said, that yep, what the officer said in that report, that's pretty accurate. Just let me take my lumps and move forward, and let's work on the next step, and I'll take responsibility. And so that's helpful to us too, as we fight when there's a fight to be had, and when there's not, we're all good. And like I said, I do think that lends value to our clients when they are represented by us, they're represented by somebody that the legal community, the judges, the prosecutors respect, that they will listen to. Yeah. And there's a lot of them that fight just for the sake of it, and they want to show their client, well, I put in this motion and I argued this before. The judge is like, well, okay.
Right.
What did it do for you?
Right.
It just ticked off everybody in the courtroom, and you showed off your fancy writing skills for the same result, and it just drug it out longer, and you ticked everybody off. Right. So, anyways.
Yeah. There's an art to it, like you were saying. Whether you be in Cottonwood, you know what's going on over there in Yavapai. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in the west side over there in Glendale, Avondale, all the Dales. Why the Dales must have been popular over there.
I don't know. That's the
Phoenix
Daddy Dale.
Right. Phoenix is ripe with all sorts of differences. In Phoenix Muni, we've got a handful. I mean, we got more than a handful boiling over there. Yep. And they've got their own system.
And it's its own little ecosystem.
Right.
You have to learn that.
Every court has an ecosystem.
Well, and that's exactly right. And, how do you teach that to a computer that, Surprise Municipal Court versus Hassayampa Justice Court? They're literally a stone's throw away from each other. This is the same municipal complex. entirely different animals that you've got to approach it entirely different ways, and different prosecutors, and some we've been working with forever, and some are brand new, but they came from other jurisdictions. And so, it's just, there's just way too much to be absorbed with a computer program.
You know what a good example of this would be? I'd love to just throw AI, just give them one little softball, one little nugget. Let's just throw AI Tempe. Tempe Municipal. And let's just let AI do its best against an average, just, shows up on time type lawyer that is given a decent effort. Just not a star, like a decent effort. And I guarantee your money back, the average heartbeat is going to beat AI every time, because at least the average guy knows there's a difference between room 1 and 2 in the prosecutors in Tempe. If you get this bunch of prosecutors, this set here, these are going to be your options. And you're most likely going to have to try that case if you're going to get what you just recently got for this client, the CDL issues. But if you get this room, you're going to get the same result you likely got this last go around in a different jurisdiction. So it's bipolar even within it. And so,
well, to your point about the heartbeat too, I mean, AI, it will give you the rational and the right answer every time, but our clients sometimes don't even know what they want or what they need. And so that's why it's really good with this intake team, and with, like I said, with Ann, talking with them. What is it that you're really concerned about here? For some, they've got immigration issues. For some, they've got family law cases that are also going on at the same time. Some are kicked out of their house and about to lose their job. And those are important, And so, there's legal aspects to everything, but there's always the human element that you just can't replicate through some sort of learning model or anything like that. And you gear your efforts, like I said, to where can we help you the most? And that's what we want to do, is help.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because you and I have an age difference, and I wanted to see what your take was. It's the same as mine. I had to think on it for quite some time. Like, obviously my immediate is, damn, whippersnappers are all blah, 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 blah. I mean, AI is just so... I don't like self checkout.
Oh yeah?
No.
Okay.
No, that's so you get it now?
Sure.
This is me. I want to say hi, Mary.
I get it. My dad just got online banking like 5 years ago. He just didn't trust it, and okay.
I still go in.
I do every now and then, but man, it's so nice if me and my brother are getting a burger late at night, and I'll just there you go, and just pay him right then and there.
All right, see,
and I don't carry cash
I wanted to see how you would respond to this, and frankly, I was interested to see your response. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I totally do. I am so far to the outside of AI. Let me put this though.
I think it can certainly help. It will help, and it will make us bigger, faster, stronger lawyers, but you still need a lawyer. You still need an attorney to come and help you through this process. You need somebody there to shake your hand at the courthouse and walk you down to the second floor, and this is where you get signed up. And I'm sure people could fumble their way through it or ask around and stuff, but man, it just takes a lot of that stress away when okay, we're going to go down to the second floor. You're going to meet with Catherine over here. Catherine's going to set you up on an intake. That's it. That's all we're doing for the rest of the day. They're going to call you in 2 weeks, and you're good to go. I mean, again, they can figure that all out, but also it's so nice in 30 seconds to just immediately calm their fears and alleviate all of that. But AI can certainly help with research and drafting. But I mean, I'm going to have to review all that. I'm still going to have to put some polish on there. I'm going to have to also, again, suit it to what prosecutor am I against? What judges? This judge has a bugaboo about X, Y, and Z things. Or we know that this judge, for example, is very sympathetic about mental health issues or something like that. And so, not that you are making anything up, but you certainly want to focus your efforts where you're going to get the best results for your client. And so, again, it's near impossible for any kind of computer system to replicate that. But I think it will make us all better, but it's still just a better version of us.
Well, you heard it first. Brian Garner, Arizona firm.